Quick introduction of myself. My name is Kendra Jones. I actually have, I'm an alumni of LMU, for both my law degree and MBA. And I'm Vice President and General Counsel for IBESCC America. I've been called back by the company you gave your full presentation to for a second visit. They have asked you to speak only about the ethical aspects of the problem and to explain why your solution successfully handled any ethical issues. You will have 10 minutes. There will be no Q&A. You may not use slides or video. You probably don't want to have more than 2 or 3 members of your team do this. Okay, that's the instruction, and I'm going to hand it over to you to get started. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Meta Board of Directors. Our team at Mann Consulting is grateful for the opportunity today to present to you more about the ethical issues of Meta's current moderation labor practices. In particular, we will cover the ethical implications of wage discrimination, moderator graphic content exposure, and Facebook's role as a model for other companies. So first, I will discuss wage discrimination in Kenya and the unethical aspects of monetarily favoring certain groups of workers over others. Next, Cindy will discuss the unethical trauma individual content moderators endure from viewing negative content that larger audiences would not be exposed to. And lastly, Hung will discuss how it is unethical for Meta to maintain poor labor practices, given that the company has so much capital. According to a 2022 Time magazine report evaluating the company operations at Sama, one of Facebook's regulator partners, Kenyan content moderators in the Nairobi office are among the lowest paid workers for Facebook around the world. In fact, the Kenyan workers are wage discriminated against, given that employers pay them around 30% less than other foreign workers in the company. Sama pays foreign employees monthly salaries of around $440 per month, or a take-home wage of roughly $2.20 per hour. However, Sama pays Kenyan workers who are not compensated the monthly relocation bonus, a take-home wage equivalent to around $1.46 per hour. These wages only barely cover the basic costs of living and do not allow them to save or improve their financial situations. As a result, content moderators at Sama are leaving, the most notable example being 6 Ethiopians resigning in just 1 week of January. The wage disparities in the Sama workplace environment is an ethical problem that highlights the discriminative behaviors of Sama employers in which they monetarily favor certain groups of workers over others. Sama's unjust practice of wage discriminating certain workers violates Article 2 of the minimum wage standards laid out by the International Labor Organization, which states that minimum wages must consider the needs of workers and their families, costs of living, and relative living standards for other social groups. Unequal pay is unethical and immoral in that it deprives Kenyan workers of payment that is rightfully theirs. As discussed during yesterday's presentation, Meta is an American company that abides by the International Labor Organization, and thus it is vital that all workers, regardless of the location, are given fair wages. Since the Kenyan workers are so highly underpaid compared to their foreign counterparts, they may struggle to secure the financial means to maintain basic living costs. Some workers even chose to leave the company after witnessing unfair wage disparities. In the end, the Kenyan workers produce the same amount of labor as foreign workers, and thus deserve to be paid the same minimum wage. Next, my colleague Cindy will discuss our second problem.
Thank you, Bridget. Now I'm going to talk about problem 2, exposing singular workers to negative content that larger audiences would not be exposed to. This is unethical because the content moderator experienced much trauma caused by it. There is an ethical dilemma about the greater good. In our case, each single worker is exposed to the content that larger audiences would not to be exposed to. On one hand, moderators may experience the harm caused by it. For example, in our presentation yesterday, Isabella Plunkett processed around 100 tickets a day. Videos, images, or text posts on the platform containing graphic violence, exploitation, extremism, abuse, and suicide, and the content become ingrained in her mind. On the other hand, it also protects the greater audience's exposure to it, benefited the user experience on the platform. It's a kind of dilemma decision for the moderator to do the stressful work to protect the greater good. On one hand, there are deontological moral theories which focus on the moral rules, rights, and duties. Beliefs such as treat others as you would like to be treated, which opposes the decision in our scenario. On the other hand, there is a consequentialist theory that supports the decision in our case. Consequentialists believe that we should aim to maximize the greater good for the greatest number of people, even if it causes some harm. This led to another ethical term, utilitarianism. It is an ethical theory that determines the right from wrong by focusing on the outcomes. It's a form of a consequentialism which are related to our current decision. And there needs a balanced decision on how much the content moderator should bear versus how much protection it brings to the larger audience. This is a problem of equality of each social individual and the greater social good. I think the balance is hard to achieve, but we should try hard to find a proper balance. For example, through the compensation and support to the moderator, like what we analyzed in the previous presentation, through the effective workplace counseling system, require breaks, long-term mental health support, etc. In that way, the work of content moderator can be maintained more sustainably and they can be better protected. Then I will pass it to my colleague Han to discuss the third problem.
Thank you, Cindy. Now I'm going to talk about the problem of the significant presence of Meta in the social media industry. So given the position and the capital capability of Meta, it is unethical for the company to either enforce or ignore bad labor practices because it not only influences its direct employees and subcontractors, but also affects the well-being of the entire industry as a whole. My first point is, as one of the most important partners of other subcontracted companies, Meta put a lot of pressure on the productivity of its partner, coercing them to favor workers' productivity over their healthiness. In 2019, content moderators in SEMA, a Meta moderation partner in Africa, threatened to strike unless they were given better working conditions. So to solve this, instead of negotiating, SEMA told participants that they were expendable and fired the strike leader, accusing him of taking action that would put the relationship between the company and Meta at risk. This contradicts the 8th goal of UN Sustainable Development, which demands corporates to promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. This brings us to my second point. Meta's practices can become an industry standard in a harmful way. Thus, this supposed standard of allowing malpractices enables other tech giants to follow suit, continuing those maltreatments without feeling the pressure of implementing changes, because the great competitors, Meta, simply do not change. In an interview with the Washington Post, 14 current and former moderators in Manila, working for other tech giants like YouTube and Twitter, described the workplace as nightmare, paranoid, and obsessiveness. Several described seeing their colleagues suffer mental breakdown at their desks. They acknowledged that there were still disconnects between the policies created in Silicon Valley and the implementation of those policies at moderation sites run by third parties around the world. So this does not follow the UN's third requirement to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being at all ages. That is the end of my argument. With that said, to sum up, I and my colleague Bridget and Cindy has presented 3 unethical problems associated with Meta's content moderators. Namely 1, wage discrimination, 2, toxic content exposure, and 3, irresponsible model as a critical industry player. Should Meta address the 3 issues, it will bring the company closer towards the sustainable vision that the UN had mapped. That's the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening.
I thought you guys did a great job. You were really well prepared. You were very much on topic. You very much followed the instructions and really, I think, grasped what we're trying to do here today. So I think, I think Bridget, you did a great job of, keeping a smile on your face, keeping the audience engaged, which I know is hard to do when you're in a Zoom room and you can't make that direct eye contact, but it still felt like you were really trying hard to make that eye contact, which was nice. And I think for those of you that were doing more reading of your script than speaking a little bit ad lib, I just caution you that sometimes that you lose a little bit of your presentation when it feels like you're reading from a script. I think you can be a little bit more engaging if you can maybe give yourself bullet points and topics, but talk a little bit more freely so it doesn't feel as much as it's being read. But I thought you were super persuasive. I thought, Cindy, you did a great job of going through the positive and the negative sides, which I think is a big part of this, is trying to really looking at both sides of what's of the dilemma, of the ethical dilemma, and striking that right balance. Overall, I think the team worked really well together. You had great transitions between your as you passed the section to the next person, and you had good delineation of who was talking about what. So overall, I think you guys did a really great job. So thank you so much for all the time you put into it. I think this is a great topic. I think it's really interesting. I definitely learned something I didn't know about Facebook. So it's something for us all to think about, and I really appreciate your time.